Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the Chief Executive's monthly report, and I'd like to hand over to Mary Richardson to take us through that.
Thank you very much. So I'll take the report as read, but just highlight a couple of matters. First of all, I would like to open the report by noting that Christchurch City Council won the Excellence in Transforming Services Award at the Solgum Awards last night, and that was for the partnership consenting. So congratulations, Buster, to you and the rest of your and the council also won another award with one of our officers winning the British Columbian Overseas Management Exchange. So that was to Liam Nolan, so congratulations to him. As far as the report's concerned, you'll notice in that forward the key issues around the recovery plan, and I know that the councillors have got a particular interest in around the Port Halls fire recovery plan, and just assuring you that the plan and any financials will come back to you in time for consideration around the annual plan, and that we will continue to give regular updates to you at the briefings, the Tuesday briefings around that. But a full report with costings will be back in time for the annual plan. Also noting that in the next few weeks there will be few months, there is the wind down and transition of the skirt program back into council, and we will be keeping you briefed of that as well. The rest of the report and the financials, just noting that capital expenditure is tracking well, particularly with the skirt program spend now largely complete, and also noting that operating expenditure is $3 million higher than budget, and that's due to the savings targets not being met, and we've previously signalled that to you as council. The rest of the financial report will open to questions, and we have our CFO here who can answer those, and then through the rest of the reports from the other areas, perhaps if I just take that as read and open up to any questions that you might have.
Questions? Jimmy Chen.
One question on page 12 regarding to the project Phoenix. That's pretty good, very good, but I just want to know, because this one, the staff focus on the council large capital program. I just want to know what's the criteria regarding to this large, the capital program. Is based on the budget, service hall, or is based on the kind of multi-function, multi-purpose the facility? Mm-hmm. That's my question.
So perhaps if I hand this to Dave to answer that, the Project Phoenix.
The Project Phoenix is we are picking up best practice our skirt, part of the skirt transition, and integrating that right across our capital program so that we can get better aligned procedures. We can get, not sure whether we've talked to council about ProMap, which is a system we've got running that locks in and documents those processes so that we get uniformity of approach across that, and then we get better reports. So it's going right across our capital program at this point in time.
Yeah, my sub-question is whether a moment the council, the key, the major the cycle, the facility, also some of the council, very crucial, the community, the facility, like a library service and the community hall, also put in this list.
Yes, certainly the list.
So the community facilities do have their own asset management program and schedule, and actually that work is being done through Dave's area on really refining that work, and it will be particularly ready for the consideration during the long-term plan. So we're doing comprehensive asset management plans around our community facilities in time for the annual LTP process.
Thank you.
Glenn Livingston.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. I have an interest, page 15 on the big agenda, but page 8 in your report under civil defence and the planning for the Alpine Fault. Just, it's with regard to what next. So obviously the the councils are working together, but it's that next phase, and we're seeing this with other events around the country, Kaikoura, etc. You know, we're probably not convinced that insurance lessons, for instance, have been learnt. So is there any work being undertaken on what might be considered the next phase after that response?
Yeah. So there's work that's happening both at a national and regional level, and then also within council. So the CDM group, and I also know the resilience officer, chief resilience officer, are doing some work on that, and the intent will be to bring a briefing back to council around the issues and the risks and how there's mitigations and what we're planning, and making sure also that there's sufficient information up on the websites and communicated out to communities, particularly building around some of those community resilience plans.
Okay, can I ask, is that an identifiable next phase, or, you know, the insurance phase, or is that part of the urgent response?
So I'll follow up on exactly what's in there and come back to you.
It's recovery. Actually, Mary, I can answer that. So the AF8 is actually about response planning and the response phase. So there will come a time around the recovery conversation too, and what that recovery plan might look like for the South Island and the Lower North Island, but we haven't even got there yet because we're still trying to understand what it means for the whole of the South Island and Wellington around a response plan. And I'm heading up to Wellington in a fortnight's time to hear how Wellington are going to have this conversation. And then once we get this response plan sorted, then there'll be the next phase around actually what does the recovery plan look like.
Yeah,
it'll be a big piece of work.
I just think we need some sort of insurance template. Perhaps it's pie in the sky thinking, but you know, yeah, we need that.
I think that what Glenn's raising is a justifiable concern about some of the lessons learned out of our experience of the earthquakes, and some of the some of the elements of it that won't crystallise for some time. So the as-is, where-is property sales, for example, and you know the sort of the lack of any real thinking from a central government point of view around how you would monitor that market in terms of the potential future ownership issues that will arise. So, I mean, people say, oh, why don't you just put it on the limb? How do you know? We only put stuff on the limb when we know it. So where is the requirement for people to notify the transfer of an as-is, where-is property?
Yeah, so I'm more than happy to raise the question around Wellington around what's the recovery plan going to look like, and what leadership role will be taken around managing the insurance issues and all of those obligations or things that happen in that space, so they can get a time frame or an indication. This AF8 planning project is a really specific budgeted government program, so they may be, I'll find out whether or not we've got a second program of work, and also that we're really keen to see that recovery work done around what it means for insurance, what it means for as-is, where-is, and that sort of thing.
Yeah, cool.
And I'll bring it back.
Yep. Dion.
Just on that point, I do know that Sarah was doing a lot of work with the insurance companies to actually map the as-is, where-is sales for people that were cashed out. But just on the report, can we get some information on the general maintenance as well? Because I was just reading through the report last night, and I couldn't find any information just because of the issues that we've been having around general maintenance of the city. Could we get maybe a monthly update on that as well? Just on where things are at from the contractors and things. Thank you.
Yep, Yanni.
Thank you. I see that the road maintenance contracts are going out for tender as well. Are they going via a committee or through us at a governance level? Previously, my understanding is we have had reports around things like the parks contracts tender. So I just wanted to check if that was the case.
So what, Dave?
There's going to be a briefing on the maintenance contracts when they're ready to go out, as they are being prepared, a briefing really with the councils just around that. There was a brief update given to the Finance and Performance Committee.
But in terms of, like previously, one of the questions that we've considered is whether we go out for tender on certain contracts. Is that a question that we're going to be as part of that report is going to be able to be determined by us, or is that already determined?
These have to go out for tender because of the NZTA criteria, so we have to meet their criteria because they fund 50% of that.
I think the question was around the final decision. Does the final decision rest with officers or with council?
No, it'll have to come to council. I think it's going to be so big with the delegations at council. I'm not, there's 4 of them. I'm not sure whether all of them fit into them, but yeah, generally they'll come back.
Can you circulate to councillors the provision of the NZTA requirements for us to go out to tender?
That would be,
yeah, I mean that was the question that Yanni was asking for.
Rules, is that what you want?
No, I want the NZTA requirements because you just said that we have to go out to tender because of NZTA requirements.
And that's lapped into their procurement rules, so I'll see if I can extract the necessary parts out of their procurement rules.
Well, is it in their legislation? Because it used to be in their legislation.
It was set by their board if we want to pick up subsidies.
Okay, that's what we want, is just that resolution.
That would be
great.
really useful. And my understanding too is that the tendering now for NZTA has changed, and we actually are part of a WTO agreement where we have to go internationally, and there's a whole bunch of issues possibly around that. You'll note that some of the contracts up north, I think, are looking at overseas countries coming in, so it would be really good just to get a bit of a snapshot around what the current NZTA process is around procurement and what that means for us in terms of decision making. Thanks.
Aaron.
Yeah, just had a question around the first bullet point of the capital projects watch list, the top 10, and it's the Metro Sports Facility. And I see the develop design phase is concluded. Is there potentially any changes to that with regards to parking in the area? Because this isn't due for completion until 2020, but there may be the option for a parking building to be started and completed well before then on that site that can be used to alleviate the issues in the area around, especially the hospital.
I'm not. Can you answer that? Is Brendan?
Yeah, so the development agreement that will shortly be executed for Metro Sports includes the provision of at grade, so flat 550 car parks with a further 95 car parks, I think it is, on a temporary basis. And all of the information, including the modelling, indicates that that's sufficient provision of car parks to meet the demand for the Metro Sports. The question of whether there's opportunities to use some of the Metro Sports car parking at off-peak times for Metro Sports for other users is something that we'll consider within that approximately 650 car parks. At this point in time, though, there's no plans for a multi-storey car park building on the Metro Sports site for predominant use by the CDHP.
Right, so the purpose for raising it is that the opportunity would be there for use for both, not just the CDHB, but to get the car park bit, because car parks are pretty quick to build, especially at grade, that would be open well before the rest of the facility. Given that there's so many other car parks lost in the area, Oxford Terrace is about to go, same with Churm Street.
I thought that the comment was made yesterday that Otakaro, but they said publicly that they've put some projects on hold.
I wasn't there.
No.
So we can. Is there any further advice we can give today about that, Brenda? There's my understanding is that the development agreement phases the capital development out, and that would be negotiation if we wanted to move.
Yeah, my question's more around that we are a partner in this facility, and it would be good if we could have a say in its potential.
But we don't own the land, and the facility is being built by Otakaro. There is a separate process going on in terms of consideration of the wider car parking issues in the area, because we don't own any land in that area. But that's a process that involves the private sector, the health precinct, the DHB, the council, Otakaro and DCL. So there is a strong desire to get resolution in that area, but there was a private sector car park building in that area before the earthquakes as well. So there are a number of things that need to be taken into account, but it's easy to go to a solution, but not when we don't own the site. So
I'd simply add that Otakaro are working very closely with the CDHB about whether there is any possibility of utilising any of the Metro Sports construction site for car parking on a temporary basis while the construction's going on, but it is complicated and they're not at the stage yet of knowing the construction staging to know whether or not they can kind of reasonably release any of the land that the Metro Sport's going to be built on for a temporary basis, but they are working with the CDHB on that. But the CDHB also have a range of other options across the city, and as you'll be aware, the council's removed itself from the King Edward Barracks flat land out there. You know, the CDHB's talking to them. Red Bus have offered land, the CDHB have other land across the city that we're also aware that we're looking at parking right facilities for.
Yeah, Tim.
Because isn't the key here the relationship between CDHB and Otakaro? It's, you know, we want to be supportive, but it's actually CDHB's responsibility with Otakaro. So I think that yes, we can be supportive, but I think those two are the key players, or the CDHB is the key player here, and we can just be supportive.
Yeah, but this is the Chief Executive's report highlights the capital projects watch list, and we are watching it in terms of the budget and the timing of the payment of that. But we are not constructing the building, and we don't own the land. Yes. And I think sometimes people go to a solution. Yeah. I mean, that is not walking distance at night for nurses without escort. That site, it would have to be a shuttle site. I think they're looking for a car park solution much closer to the hospital itself. Yeah, so I had there was somebody over here as well, Phil and then Yanni. Was it Anne? Was it you? No?
Mine isn't a question, it's more a comment around cycleways, which is on page 4 of the report. It's really starting to, just given the challenges that have that I guess we as a council have had, I think these achievements are really quite remarkable, and I want to thank staff for their perseverance. And there's been some of the consultation has led to some pretty robust discussions, but I think the key thing about that is that the council are open to making changes and would continue to be around the planning. But I think it's particularly the staff I want to thank for all the excellent work they've done, and these are really, as I say, I think terrific achievements. Papanui Parallel, Little River, Unicycle, and the first stage of Rapanui, that first section, that they're well on track, as the report says. I think that's excellent.
Yanni?
Yeah, thank you. Just in relation to the Metro Sports, so my understanding was that the car parking was going to be subject to a joint business case between the Crown and Council, including parking strategies for the wider area, and that's how the ownership of the land was going to be determined. So what I'm interested in is whether or not that work is going to be complete before we sign off on the development agreement, because in the report when we signed up to the Metro Sports, it was really clear that our assessment as council of the number of car parks provided was insufficient, and I'm interested to also understand, given that we also heard that the assessment has shown apparently that it's now okay and the quantum of car parking hasn't changed, so that's quite different advice to what we had previously.
So do you want to follow?
So I'm very confident communication that's gone out to councillors. So the cost share agreement 2013 provides for the project ownership upon completion to be council's. It's council's expectation that project ownership includes the land underneath the facility and the car park. On the 8th of September, council resolved to delegate to the Chief Executive the authority to negotiate and execute a development agreement with the Crown covering, amongst other things, what will be transferred to council ownership upon completion. If there are any matters in the development agreement that are materially different from Council's decision on the Metro Sports facility to date, then they would be referred back to Council for consideration. the draft development agreement that is very close to completion and will be signed by the Chief Executive includes the provision of the facility, the car parking and the land underneath the facility to be transferred to council ownership upon practical completion, which is therefore the development agreement fits well within the delegation that council have made to the Chief Executive. If there was anything materially different in the development agreement, such as that the council didn't own the facility or didn't own the land or there are no car parks or anything like that, then we would obviously come back to council. We're confident though that the development agreement sees the upon practical completion the full transfer of the land, facility and car parking to council.
Sorry, that's not the issue. The issue is that in the report that when council signed off on the design, the preliminary design, it was stated very clearly that there would be a development agreement. The report assumes that a development agreement detailing how council and Crown through Otago will work together. That's point one. Point two, the quantum of parking on the metro site and or the quantum of parking available to customers of the facilities will be finalised by a separate joint business case between council and the Crown, including parking strategies for the wider area. And all through the report it talks about the concern at the insufficient car parking of the 550, and that we'll have a separate process to work out the level of car parking, including the future of the car parking land ownership. So what my question is there a joint business case being prepared? And if so, when is it going to be ready? And will it be ready in time to inform the development agreement?
So my understanding is the business, yes. So
when are we able to see that?
So I think that's within the delegation of the CEO. So my understanding was that that wasn't coming back to council. That was a matter of the as part of the development agreement, and that the business case was being developed and informed that it wasn't coming back to council. It was in the CE's delegations.
Well, that's not clear from
as
the
long
report
as it was sufficient. I think the issue was around the sufficiency of the car parks, because the key to this is that they have to be available for free for metro sports users. So I'm pretty sure that there's a decision with something about there not being a car park building it's on grade parking to be available for free for metro sports users. Now metro sports won't be open 24/7, but it will be open 7, and for the additional hours are those parks available for additional use, and that's what we're looking at.
So the question is, will the parks be available for alternative uses
after hours?
Yes, they will be. That's the intention. We don't know at the moment whether they will be freely available for use or whether there will be a charge for other users not using the metro sports facility. So what we have been very clear is that we want to ensure that there are sufficient car parks adjacent to the metro sports facility for metro sports facility users, not for all-day parking for shoppers or commuters. But there are opportunities with the peak timing for metro sports facility users and the peak timing for other users to potentially utilise the car parking 24/7 if that's possible.
Right.
So can we get a copy of the business case that's been prepared around the car parking? And also can we just
I don't know that it's completed.
Be advised around...
I don't know that... Is the business case completed? Is it?
DCL did it.
And also, can we just be advised around whether the assessment of 550 car parks is still considered insufficient, or if it's considered sufficient, how have we come to that consideration?
So the operator, and John's back in the room today, was satisfied that there are sufficient car parks for the metro sports. But do you want to speak to this matter, John?
The business case provides for 550 permanent car parks. It also provides for an area of land on the site that will accommodate a further 80 car parks should they be needed. And the council has the right to use that land and those car parks if they're needed. In our opinion, this is considered sufficient. Our ideal total when we did the calculations was about 620, so both sides are aligned. We believe it's sufficient.
Very good. Thank you. Aaron?
Yeah, just like to make a couple of points, and it was refreshing to hear, Ms Chair, that you said the car parking at the Metro Sports facility would be free, because that's the first time I'd heard that, and that was the original reason why I didn't vote for it to leave the Kiwi 2 site, because we couldn't be told whether it would be free.
Yeah, no, it's a condition. Sorry, we're going to have to update some new members, you know, and maybe that's a learning from this.
Yeah, I've asked that question several times, so it was good to hear it from you today. So,
but we all know, you know, so it's...
Well, I've been on a community board for a number of years and didn't know, and had asked the question and hadn't been told.
Yeah, but you've been asking while you've been a councillor and you haven't been
yes,
told.
Yes, I had, yeah.
I don't know who you were asking, but...
and then anyway. The other points is health boards aren't funded to provide parking. They get no money for that from the government, and as many people will be aware, the CDHB is already underfunded anyway on the funding model. So it isn't in their mandate to provide parking, and it's not part of their role. But we need a joined up approach between all parties, and I think the council has a responsibility, especially given that we will inherit the Metro Sports facility site, to look, can that be part of the solution for what basically the entire city agrees is a major problem, that the building that should be the most accessible in Christchurch is probably the least accessible right now, and I think that is a major issue. So if we can be part of that solution with that site, then we should be. And I know I can't use the number because it's a PX report, but I've seen the number of car parks needed in the area, and the 550 certainly would not be adding any help to that area.
So you said that we can give you assurances that there is work, and I think Brendan's outlaid some of that work on trying to find a parking solution in that area. So we can...
but the Metro Sports site should be part of that if it could be.
It will be part of that if it can be. It is. So we can come back at some later date with some information.
It's a public record that the CDHB have estimated they require approximately 1,400 long stay car parks in and around the area. That's been a matter of public record for some years. The Metro Sports car parking is predominantly for the Metro Sports. We have collaborated and shared information with the CDHB on what we think the opportunities for sharing some of that car parking is, but ultimately it's up to the CDHB to undertake their own assessment, which we understand they are redoing now. The Chief Executive has previously advised that we've shared some of our parking expertise with the CDHB following the meeting between the Chief Executives last Friday. So we are working very closely with them, but there are challenges that we appreciate for the hospital given the construction going on in and around there, but equally the Metro Sports won't be available until 2020, so we've still got a number of years to get through before we use the Metro Sports as a solution to the CDHB car parking issue around the hospital.
I'm just also very mindful of the fact that in terms of the work that's been done by DCL and others on the parking issue, there will be commercially sensitive information contained within that document. So it may well be that we need to receive it in a public excluded environment in order to protect their commercial elements of it, because I know that there's private sector involvement in car park buildings that are much closer to the hospital than the Metro Sports facility. So I mean, that's all I think we should say about the matter now, but I think we need to arrange a public excluded formal reporting on the business case if that's appropriate. I'd rather not have it circulated in an environment where it could be inadvertently passed on and create problems that don't need to be created. Great. All right, so I'd like to move that the Chief Executive's monthly report be received. Jimmy Chen would like to second that. I'll put that motion. All those in favour say aye. Those opposed say no. That's carried.